Good morning, good morning, good morning. How is JNUC Day 3? Everybody's wide awake, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Went to sleep early last night. I'm glad to hear it. Well, it's always an honor here at JNUC to hear from our friends at Apple. And today we have the illustrious Kelly Conlin and Dan Flynn, who are going to be taking us through updates and details on identity and security, best practices and new announcements and things like that from earlier this year. So please welcome to the stage Dan and Kelly.
I'm really sorry I'm not the Tom Cruise impersonator from last night. I'm sure that would be much more enjoyable, but for today's session, we are going to do a quick overview of Apple security, and then we're going to dive in a little deeper on some of the announcements that were made around identity and security from WWDC. So let's take a look back at Apple security and all the funness that has come with it. So at Apple, our philosophy around security really started here with the iPhone. The iPhone represented a chance to build a new platform from the ground up with security in mind. From a product perspective, our approach was to eliminate as many barriers as possible and make it as easy as possible for IT. So we built in network features like VPN, 802.1x capabilities, security features like data protection, device encryption, and management capabilities through MDM. And all of that was possible through deployment technologies with Device Enrollment Program, which is now Apple Business Manager and Apple School Manager. And I forgot the click, I'm so sorry. So for enterprise, it started with iPhone, and then eventually the iPad was brought along about 10 years later, or not 10 years later, sorry, in 2010. And year after year, we've added new security features and management features to both iPhone and iPad to make it the best platform for business, which led to 100% adoption within Fortune 500 companies. Now, the best part about deploying and supporting Apple products today is that they are designed around the same core principles and the same core experience. So this means that each have a seamless integration between software and hardware and a powerful ecosystem of applications. The best part, though, is that they're intuitive and easy to use for the end users. This also means that our devices take advantage of a lot of the same features. So, for example, almost every major enterprise feature we've added to iPhone and iPad has made its way to the Mac. So here's a quick example of some of the security features we've added to Mac over the years. Over a decade ago, Apple brought the modern foundation of management and security to Mac OS with the MDM framework and full disk encryption with File Vault. Next, we added in anti-malware protections with XProtect and Gatekeeper, and the annual macOS updates became free for all end users and organizations, because who doesn't like free things from Apple? That same zero-touch deployment framework that iPhone and iPad were utilizing also came to the Mac. As Mac continued to evolve, we continued to harden the OS by introducing system integrity protection to protect the deepest parts of the operating system. And then next, we added in that integration of Touch ID and the T2 chip, which added even more hardware-level protections. So macOS also gained new management capabilities by being able to manage software updates, control which apps had access to what, specifically around like camera, microphone, and even more end-user privacy protections. Also, macOS became even more secure by signing the entire system volume and by mandatory code signing by third-party applications. Now, the modern era of Mac, as we are seeing it today, really starts with the transition to Apple Silicon. This is going to bring even more hardware-level protections and enables new features like the ability to erase all contents and settings. And for macOS Ventura, there's even a new faster security improvement with rapid security response, which is completely independent from the OS. So we've developed these security capabilities for Mac based on a couple of fundamental principles. Historically, people have believed there's always going to be a trade-off between end-user experience and security, right? Like they can't commingle, but we at Apple disagree. It is possible to do both. Sometimes it can be the more challenging way forward, but it's worth it. And Apple, we care so deeply about the end-user experience, and we want to preserve it as much as possible, but we don't want to sacrifice security. So for enterprise and education customers, we take this one step further. In addition to security and user experience, we also want to make sure we're always considering management, IT, and security teams' needs as well. Okay, so let's go into how Apple is secure by design. And really a lot of that is around this philosophy of our integration at every layer, so everything is connected. So this all begins with how we build security into our hardware. Like I said, Apple Silicon brings the best of iPhone and iPad to Mac with core functionality like root of trust. Also, Apple hardware security ensures the integrity of the system ensures the integrity of the system with secure boot. Secure boot begins in the hardware and builds a chain of trust through the software. This is going to make sure each step is designed to ensure the next step is fully functioning. Software security features like the system integrity protection and side system volume will ensure the macOS is trusted from the first boot. And secure software updates will make sure that the macOS remains secure. So built-in encryption with File Vault and data protection with Apple Silicon is going to ensure that the data also remains secure on the disk and cannot be accessed without proper permissions. Additionally, Apple's app security model ensures that third-party software is either distributed through our secure Mac App Store or is notarized with Apple so that it's making sure it's verified and is free of any malware or any possible malicious intent. So gatekeeper policies can be put in place to make sure software from unknown developers is not allowed. Plus, the built-in XProtect utility can scan for known malicious software and remove it automatically. So of course, with all Apple products, modern secure networking with corporate Wi-Fi standards and VPN, having all of that built in is, of course, something we always want to make sure we have available to all organizations. And then finally, Apple ensures our systems are kept secure with security and bounty and research programs. This is going to help make sure anything that's out in the wild is reported back and the community is aware. Plus, Apple documents how our services and platforms are meeting regulatory standards with our security certifications and compliance center. If you guys aren't aware of this website, very powerful, very cool, lots of great resources there. So as I mentioned earlier, our being secure by design philosophy is only one part of the equation, right? We care so much about that user experience, and a great example is the Touch ID sensor. This represents a way to improve that authentication experience by allowing user to have more complex passcodes while making the process simple and easy for them to use. This achieves that perfect balance of security and usability without any sacrifice to the organization or the platform itself. So not only does Apple make our products more secure, we're also making security easier for end users, which is ultimately the goal for everyone. Okay, so let's talk about some of the frameworks that are available to organizations. First up, we have the mobile device management framework, which I'm sure most here are very familiar with. But if you're not, a quick refresher. This is going to enable remote configuration and management of Apple devices. This is a built-in protocol. It's in Mac, iPhone, iPad, and Apple TV. And this is going to ensure organizations can securely manage your devices. This will allow you to set password policies, enforce encryption, make sure security settings are in place, and find lost devices or even completely wipe devices. In addition to that MDM framework, we also have the Endpoint Security Framework, or the Endpoint Security API, and this is going to allow solutions to advanced security needs. So let's talk about that a little bit more. The Endpoint Security Framework is a newer release. It came out in Catalina, and this is designed to be a replacement for the low-level operating and monitoring that was achievable only through the kernel. So the Endpoint Security Framework, it's going to enable security solutions to take advantage of better debugging, quicker development, and they're not going to have a lot of the instability that came with the processes they used previously, and they're going to have more security options. And by that, I mean their clients that they're going to be developing that are going to use the Endpoint Security Framework are going to be able to monitor for the security events you see up here, but then also be able to authorize or deny those events as appropriate. So this is how Apple builds in security and management into all of our devices to make sure users are doing their best work. Products that are secure by design while providing the best user experience and built-in manageability for IT and security teams is definitely our goal. And to tell you a little bit more about some of the newer things that we've come out with in WWDC, I'm going to pass things over to my colleague, Dan.
Thanks, Kelly. So let's take a look at some of the new identity and security features in iOS 16, iPadOS 16, and macOS Ventura. So first, let's explore managed Apple IDs, which provide end users with access to Apple services and the ability to personalize their devices. These accounts are key to creating personalized experiences while meeting the deployment needs of your organization. For education institutions, managed Apple IDs allow for the Classroom app to be automatically configured with class rosters so teachers can start working with their students right away in class or remotely. Teachers can also use schoolwork to hand out assignments and follow student progress, helping them tailor instruction to each student's needs. For both business and education organizations, Shared iPad provides students and employees an individualized experience on iPad and access to all their apps and work they create. End users can collaborate in Pages, Keynote, and Numbers to create interactive books, engaging presentations, or even brilliant science reports all together. And iCloud Storage allows end users to save the content they're creating and access it on any device. As managed Apple IDs become part of organizations' identity strategy, it's important to understand what data sources can help you in IT and your teams create and maintain managed Apple IDs. Managed Apple IDs are created when users log in with a federated identity, which we'll explore shortly, or by syncing with an identity provider directory. Additionally, schools can import student roster information from student information systems, or even by importing CSV files using SFTP. Accounts can also be created manually, but by integrating Apple School Manager or Apple Business Manager with a data source, IT can automate this process. Federated authentication allows IT departments to quickly deploy managed Apple IDs using their existing identity provider. When you federate Apple Business Manager or Apple School Manager with a supported identity provider, and the user signs into the Apple device for the first time, the managed Apple ID needed to access Apple services is created automatically. Using federated authentication greatly reduces the account creation overhead for IT teams and allows end users to use one credential for single sign-on across multiple platforms. It also ensures that identity management policies are consistently enforced across all applications and services in your organization. This spring, Apple School Manager and Apple Business Manager added federation for Google Workspace as an identity provider. This joins the existing support for Microsoft's Azure AD. IT teams can use federated authentication to allow users to sign in with their Google or Azure AD username and credential, making it easy for users to access Apple services. With federation set up, when a user logs in with their managed Apple ID, the domain is recognized as being federated, and the user is directed to continue. A standard Google Workspace sign-in window is presented to the user, and they proceed to log in with the same password they use for other Google Workspace services. And so this is a very similar experience if you're using Azure Active Directory as well. But in that case, the standard Azure AD sign-in window would be presented instead. Related to Apple IDs, sign-in with Apple was introduced a few years ago and allows users to quickly and privately sign into third-party apps and websites using their personal Apple ID. Well, with the release of iOS 16, iPadOS 16, and macOS Ventura, sign-in with Apple will now work with managed Apple IDs. And IT teams will be able to control which apps can be used with sign-in with Apple. You'll see a new access management option, which will be available here in the sidebar. And here, IT admins can manage sign-in with Apple access. IT teams can choose allow all apps or allow only certain apps to be able to assign which apps users can use with sign-in with Apple. If a user tries to log into an app that's not on the list, they will see an error message. And this functionality is the same for Apple School Manager, Apple Business Manager, and Apple Business Essentials. Specifically for schools, though, sign-in with Apple also uses the Roster API, which allows third-party education apps to sync user and class data from Apple School Manager. So this saves admins the manual task of creating student and class records within a third-party app or service. The Roster API allows third-party apps to fully automate this process by retrieving users and class information automatically. This is known as organizational data sharing within Apple School Manager. So just like sign-in with Apple, IT teams can choose which apps have access to the Roster API. So that's sign-in with Apple at work and school, and users can quickly sign into apps and websites using their managed Apple ID. And new controls in Apple Business Manager and Apple School Manager allow IT teams to choose which apps are allowed. To learn more, I'd encourage you to watch the WWDC 22 session, Discover Sign-In with Apple at Work and School. And so now back to Kelly to discuss single sign-on.
Thank you, Dan. All right, so let's talk about single sign-on. So this was introduced again with macOS Catalina and iOS 13, and the SSO extension is going to allow a user to enter their credentials once so that subsequent apps and websites and other services will not require the end user to repeatedly re-authenticate. This worked with third-party identity providers, but historically, the SSO extension only went into action after a user logged in. But, coming with macOS Ventura, we are going to be introducing Platform SSO. This will now extend that user SSO capabilities to the macOS login window. So end users will be able to use that identity provided IDP password to log into their Mac and unlock their Mac and allow that experience to continue. So Platform SSO makes this possible by making tokens from the login available to third-party SSO extensions or the built-in Kerberos extension. This enables users to sign in once at the login window and then automatically be signed in to apps and websites. So to dive in just a little bit deeper, the first login will authenticate with a local account password, which will also unlock file vault encryption. This enables the user to then log in while either online or offline, but when they're connected to captive networks, then from then on, the identity provided password will be able to be used to unlock the device. So from here, users can also unlock their Mac with Touch ID and Apple Watch. The local account password can automatically be kept in sync with the local password and cloud password, so you can ensure they will always match. But a quick note, this will require support from IDPs, so if you are interested, make sure you reach out to your vendor and understand where they're at with platform SSO. Continuing on with SSO capabilities, we have in user enrollment SSO. So that same functionality we're going to be bringing to BYOD devices with user enrollment. With security and privacy at the heart of everything we do, user enrollment is a great device management option that incorporates both of those principles. Its design allows the user to be comfortable with their privacy and keeping that personal data protected, as well as the organization being confident that their data on those end users' devices are also secure. So user enrollment is based around managed Apple IDs. And this provides access to Apple services such as iCloud, again, keeping that experience for the end users very streamlined. For user enrollment with managed Apple IDs, this is different than the sign-in with Apple. This is going to be used alongside a personal Apple ID that the user has already signed in with on that device. Then user enrollment will also make sure we're protecting the privacy of the user through data separation and curated management capabilities. So a streamlined user enrollment process is going to be built right into the Settings app. During the keynote, there was a great example of this, so if you haven't watched that or if you missed that, please make sure you go back and watch. But this is going to make this as easy as possible for end users to enroll their personal devices. So to begin, the user is going to navigate to the redesigned VPN and device management section in the Settings app. They're going to then select Sign In to Work or School button. And then as they enter their managed Apple ID, the service directory is going to start to identify the MDM solution through the user's enrollment URL. When the user is signed in, the new management account is promptly displayed in the Settings app. And then additionally, on iOS 16 and iPadOS 16, there's going to be support for OAuth 2.0. So this is going to allow MDM solutions to implement that first-class experience that many IDPs are already moving forward with for authentication. OAuth is great with the existing account-driven user enrollment flow, but it also provides an even better user experience when it's combined with the new user enrollment SSO. So user enrollment SSO is designed to make that flow even faster and easier by reducing the number of sign-ins that are required during enrollment into an MDM. This is accomplished by installing an identity app, then using it to handle the repeated authentication process during and after enrollment. Users will start out by entering their email address in settings. Then they're prompted to download that app from the App Store. This app provides a native UI to perform authentication steps, so it's very easy for the end user, and a user only needs to sign in once. This app will then use that sign-in information to get you through that enrollment flow without having to sign in again. This native app authentication experience provides an even better overall feeling for the end user, and it's going to give even more authentication options for IT. IT teams will also be able to provision manage Apple IDs through Apple School Manager or Apple Business Manager and enrollment SSO within their MDM solutions. So configuration will be very easy. Okay, I'm going to actually pass it back to Dan to talk about our security updates.
Thank you. So new is lockdown mode, which offers an extreme optional level of security for the very few users who, because of who they are or maybe what they do, may be personally targeted by some of the most sophisticated digital threats, such as those from the NSO group or other private companies developing state-sponsored mercenary spyware. Turning on lockdown mode on iOS 16, iPadOS 16, and macOS Ventura further hardens the device defenses and strictly limits certain functionalities, sharply reducing the attack surface that potentially could be exploited by highly targeted mercenary spyware. iOS 16, iPadOS 16, and macOS Ventura introduce a new mechanism to ship security fixes to users more frequently. These responses will be included in an ensuing minor update. Rapid security responses don't adhere to the managed software update delay. They only apply to the current minor operating system version. And so if that minor operating system version happens to be delayed, well, then the rapid security response will also effectively be delayed. By default, the user can also remove these responses if necessary. But to manage this, MDM solutions have the following restrictions. It can allow or disallow installation of rapid security responses, or you can allow or disallow the removal of rapid security responses. Back in iOS 10.3, we introduced a change in the default TLS trust policy for certificate payloads to enhance overall transport security for all of our users. In a future release, we'll be bringing this to macOS as well. And so this means manually installing certificate payloads will no longer be trusted for TLS purposes unless the user explicitly grants that trust in the keychain access application. Please note, though, we will still continue full certificate trust if that certificate is embedded in an MDM-delivered profile. But please be sure to update any workflows that may involve a user installing that certificate trust by themselves on demand using a configuration profile. Next, accessory security in macOS aims to protect our customers from close access attacks. These are attacks where an adversary has physical control over that particular device for an extended period of time. This is supported on portable Macs with Apple Silicon. And the initial configuration is to prompt the user to allow for new Thunderbolt or USB accessories, even if the device is unlocked. Approved accessories can continue to connect to a locked Mac for up to 3 days. But if you attach an unknown accessory to a locked Mac, you will be prompted to unlock the Mac to use the accessory. For some implementations, this behavior may be undesirable. Think your unattended Mac installations, like in a CI/CD type pipeline. Therefore, we provided MDM solutions that can control this behavior by using the existing allow USB restricted mode restriction, which can be used to always allow Thunderbolt and USB accessories if desired. So devices are more distributed than ever before, and it's more important than ever before to be able to prove that a device is what it says it is. And so to address this, Apple has introduced managed device attestation. And this helps prevent attackers from stealing devices' TLS private keys, spoofing a particular legitimate device, or even just coercing the device to lie about its own properties. This feature is designed with zero trust principles in mind. And managed device attestation cryptographically validates that a device is a genuine Apple device and a specific device from a specific institution. All of this uses the Secure Enclave and its strong assurances. It uses attestation certificates and the ACME certificate enrollment protocol that can issue client certificate identities to managed devices to connect to services such as MDM or 802.1x or VPN or more. Attestation certificates provide very strong assurances about the device, such as its serial number and its software version or UDID. And so to learn more, I highly encourage watching the excellent session in WWDC 22 session, Discover Managed Device Attestation. So that's what's new for identity and security this year with Google Workspace federated authentication, managed Apple ID support for sign-in with Apple, platform and user enrollment SSO support, rapid security response, and managed device attestation. These identity and security features join a number of additional updates and device management that Christos described yesterday in the deployment and management section. and enhancements to declarative device management and evolution of the protocol itself. So we're super excited about where we're going here. And just to list a couple resources that are available to you if you haven't seen them before to help you get ready for all these new changes. The Appleseed for IT program provides access to beta software with in-depth beta documentation and release notes that focus on IT admin workflows. So you can visit the URL you see here and use your managed Apple ID that you get for free for that. Apple Professional Training supports IT professionals to get the skills you need to support, deploy, and manage Apple devices. There's self-paced online courses that allow for a very flexible learning schedule, certification exams that can be taken from your home or your office, and after you've passed, you get a great verified digital badge that you can boast on your favorite professional networking site. The Apple Platform Deployment Reference is a technical document covering topics we've just discussed today and more, as well as supporting information about infrastructure and services and integration for deployment of all Apple products and services. I also encourage you to check out the Apple Platform Security documentation. It's an absolute index of everything we've discussed here today and much, much more. And it provides security information about all of our software, hardware, and services across all of our platforms. And finally, user guides for Apple School Manager and Apple Business Manager to help you navigate and everything you need to manage your devices, purchase apps, and create managed Apple IDs and more. So thank you for joining us here today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of JNUC 2022. Thank you.